That's great. I think. Can you guys hear me now? Please check once again and let me know. How about now? Is it good? All right. I think we should be back online. So let me look into the questions if there's any. Boom Supersonic founder Blake Scholl says he innovated nothing. He just bought all aerospace companies like Leonardo, Laterto, Italian aerospace companies together to make XP1 and Overture. Yeah. Uh, not audible. How about now? Is it good? That's weird. I think there's some issues with the audio now, I guess. Alright, I think it's good, I guess. Okay. There should be some background noise, that's for sure, because I have an exhaust fan, like a cooling fan for my laptop, so it's sort of like going to be running in the background. I don't have my mic as of now because it's not connected. It wasn't like charged. That's my bad. So I think if it's all good now, I think let's start with the AMA session. Let me know if everything is good now. Right. I think about this Zoom, I think it was Boom Supersonic, right? Yeah, I've heard about them. It again depends if there are like some companies who are looking into like not developing the tech, but they are like on a shopping spree of buying startups and companies who are like building it. It again depends on some companies. They want to do it that way. They don't want to like build it from scratch, and they feel like they just want to uh, purchase the companies who have already developed those tech and then use it on their system. It's not pretty much common in hardware. It's been happening across like all the industries. Even like big giants like Google, Microsoft, they keep like acquiring startups which have like the necessary tech that they have. So I guess that answers your question. It was Akash, I guess. Yeah. And think thoughts on cyclopter as the future of urban air mobility than the traditional quadcopters and tiltrotors based on distributed electric propulsion. That's something I have to check. Let me see. I have this thing over here. Or that. I think I remember if it was something like a style design, if I'm correct. Oh yes, the side rotor stuff. I have seen it. It seems to be like really efficient. Um, it seems to have that. It seems to not have that crazy propellers like spinning in front of you, like the blades and like all that crazy stuff. So I feel like it's somewhat better, but we had to do a lot more develop like R&D on the the entire tech itself, like how efficient it is as against the traditional propellers. Because like if you know traditional propellers has been there for like decades, and like it's something like we know how efficient the system is. I'm sorry, I think the ask me anything text is blocking. So I was saying like these tech is like fairly new. I would say it may take some time to like pick up that um, the market. I would say it is very similar to like the axial flux motors and like the brushless motors thing. So we had to see more of the development happening and being used in the market, used in the field, and you need to have like a lot of data from these systems being in place. We had to like monitor all those efficiencies, how capable it is, and things like that. But from the design point, I would say like it does have its features, like it's safer, and in case of like failure, like I think it has much lesser damage as compared to like traditional propellers. Awesome. I think, is there anything else? Okay, I think Vasu had asked the question. Can you please explain the effects of two motors attached at the same arm, one on top and one on below? Okay, how it affects the drone? Does it increase its thrust? So the thing is like when you have single motors, typically there would be a lot of prop wash. You need to like fine tune a lot of the motors parameter and the propeller parameters, like the pitch, everything, and this can be eliminated to some extent. But if you have two rotors, if I'm correct, like technically what it does is like it eliminates that prop washes and increases the efficiency, like how the propellers like when it spins, like the airflow is like completely like vertical downwards, and then the other motors on the bottom would push it further down, so it definitely increases the efficiency. We have seen it. But like the effects of that prop wash, everything is kind of like reduced when you have like two rotors. I guess like that answers your question. Let me know if you have any thoughts or um, any clarifications that you require for that. Anything else? I think let's go with the giveaway. So I do have like a bunch of people who have been registering for the giveaways, and I have taken all the list. It's there in the list of names. I just found like this random name picker. It seems to be working fine. So what we'll do is like we'll just pick 5 out of the like complete registered people. We'll like pick 5 names, and out of that 5 names, we'll pick one as the winner. I hope like that sounds good. So let's draw the names as of now. Like you can see, it's all there here. Number of names to pick, we'll do 5. Right? Shall we run it? There you go. Alright, we have like 5 names here: Divya, and Ramakrishna Omkara Nikhil Satyakama. I think hopefully it's first name last name. So I think I'll select all these, delete everything, and pick it up here. So I think by end of the session, I think we'll like do the final winner. In the meantime, let me check if there are any questions again. Your thoughts on eVTOLs as air taxi or for delivery based on the range they offer right now? Right. So this has been a quite interesting question I get in the industry. I've spoken to like a lot of people in the drone sectors who are like either startup founders or like companies who are like working on it. So this is again like the personal opinion from what I've seen is that drones are not really an efficient system for the last mile delivery. Let's talk about the deliveries, drone deliveries, and then we'll talk about the eVTOLs. So the last mile delivery is not really an efficient way. What I feel is like either like in US this has been tested, and like it's crazy that these whole delivery thing has been like going wild in the industry, but it's not really an efficient system to deliver in the last mile, meaning like getting it to the end of the end user, right? So this is going to be really efficient from warehouse to warehouse transitions. Like they have certain orders which is closer from warehouse 1 instead of from warehouse 2. So you see like a drone could be an efficient way to get those orders from warehouse 2 to warehouse 1, and then on the road it can be delivered from warehouse 1 to the end user. Like it's not really efficient because you need a really big space, considering that there are some companies doing drone deliveries in US, and a lot of people have a big backyard, and it's not even working over there. So imagine a place like India where orders which are flowing higher on the city side than outside of cities, but in the within city you don't have like drone permits to fly. But even if the companies are taking it, there is actually no space for the drone to like either stay in the air, like the drone can stay in the air and drop the package through a like a lever or something like that, or the drone to land and like deliver it. There is literally no space for that aspect, and there are like all these again electric poles and like wires, telephone wires, and there are like lot of random objects which are like close to the delivery locations or places where you need it to be delivered. The only place I feel like it can be delivered is like the terrace, right? Like that's where I feel an efficient way to deliver. Again, you had to consider a lot of other things, right? Like what are the things on the terrace? Is it like accessible for the end user to like reach there? So those are the aspects I've seen. Like it's not going to be an efficient way to do the last mile delivery, but for the as I said, like for the warehouse to warehouse would be an efficient way. And coming to the topic of I think eVTOLs, again like air taxis or eVTOLs or flying cars, whatever you can like call it. Again, the very similar problem is that like it's not safe and it's not really an efficient way for transportation. Like you have helicopters, right? Like you have the same capabilities which you have with helicopters. You're trying to optimize that. Like you may have like redundant systems with like let's say like a giant quadcopter. Basically air taxis now, if you see like most of the companies, it's a giant quadcopters. So you have that redundancy and things like that, but it's definitely not safe. The whole propulsion system and like the battery system, everything is like really not a safe proof, right? Like it's not a it's a huge security concern. Like what if it fails and like it falls on property or people? It's going to be a huge risk. From the perspective of like a point to point transportation, like you have certain port where like how bus stands or like railway stations are. So you have like a port where people are getting over to that place, and then you get delivered to another, like you get transported to a different place. You're not getting delivered. You're being transported. So if you're being transported in that way, then definitely it makes sense. But the cost and the current technology, with the current technology and the cost, it's going to be like really an expensive business, and it's not really going to be a cost effective solution at this point. So what I would say is like we have to focus more on the tech rather than the application. This is something which a lot of people tend to miss, especially in the drone sector, is that like people are not working on the actual tech, but they are focused more on the application. If you have the tech, the application will flow directly. But like people do it the other way around, which is something like I would say is not the right way. Right. I think let's go move on to the next question. Many companies are good at building drones, and why don't they apply same technology and make human carrying vehicles? Okay, again, as I said, the companies don't have actual tech here. Like the thing is, to build a human carrying vehicles, like flying cars, air taxis, eVTOLs, whatever you want to call it. So that requires a system where it is much more than your toy drones, right? Like it's not your toy drone, you're just making it bigger. Like once you make it big, you have a lot of things which come into play. You have like big propulsion systems, you have like bigger batteries, and you need to have a fail-safe system, wherein like you build your autonomous systems, like that needs to have its own fail-safe. Now you're actually building an aircraft and not a toy drone anymore. So in order to build that kind of a tech, first is like you cannot just take a small drone and just make it bigger. It's not going to be that easy. And the safety concern gets added more. You need to add like a lot of redundant sensor systems, and all your battery systems, and like the propulsion system. What if one propeller fails? What does it do? So all those kind of like real world environment is something like the companies needs to take care of. It's not going to be as simple as like you have a big you build like small drones, let's make it bigger. It's not going to be that quite simple. Not getting job in IT sector, feeling depressed. I think the job market itself has been really bad as of now. You don't have to be depressed, keep trying, I would say. What I would suggest is like try building projects in the sector which you are interested to work in, and try to showcase your your talent or like your skill sets. Like I wouldn't say just having a degree is not good anymore. What I would say is like try to build your profile, like build a portfolio of things what you are interested in, and try to apply jobs in that related field. And what I would also recommend is like try to network in that sector. Try to talk to people who are working in that sector. If there are like startups, try to talk with like the founders, and try to find out like how you can provide your skill sets as a service. So that way you can actually utilize your skill set. I know this question is like slightly off, but yeah, I hope it helps you. Please explain by how much time and money does it take to build company like Hermes and Boom Supersonic into train pilots for new fighter jet and hire his salary of propulsion engineers. I think this is a bit complicated question. How much time and money? You need a lot, that's for sure. You need like a lot to either like acquire companies, or like you need to build that tech. Like you need like really lot of resources, like resources from people who have that required skill set, people who have that knowledge and who are like ready to provide you that service. And you need like a lot of money for developing all the hardware and R&D stuff. So you need a lot. Like I cannot give you a specific number. The higher you have, the better. Like if you have like crores, like 50, 100 crores and things like that, that's where you'll be like able to survive and do R&D stuff in that level. As a core tech startup founder, don't you sometimes get demotivated from the fact that almost 95% drone startups are white labeling Chinese products as Indian and getting tons of valuations? I think I'm beyond that point of like getting demotivated, like I've seen this happening for the last few years, and it's somewhat like I try to ignore that. It's all like noise for me. I've felt like, let them do what they want. Eventually, like, the recent news of like, some companies using Chinese parts, they did find out by the government that like they were using Chinese parts, and they were like, kind of like blacklisted from shipping any drones to government, or something like that has happened. So, like some of the other day, like these companies are going to get known that they are white labeling Chinese parts and they are using Chinese components. So eventually it is going to come out, and I don't have to worry about it much. Like I'm going to build and keep building what I'm doing. Like it shouldn't be a demotivation point, but more of a what do you say, like a benchmark to know that like in the industry this is what is happening, and we are doing much better. That's what like keeps me motivated. I hope that answers your question. Um, okay. How time and money to make different categories of cruise missile for fighter jets, and on which platform will I get talented people to make companies like Amazon to supersonic this propulsion? Okay, Akash, I think like you might have to network on this a bit. Like you had to figure out like what sort of tech you need. If you have that tech, then it's good way to start it. Like that's where I would say try to um, learn those things. Like you don't have to go much deeper, but try to have the knowledge of how to do it and what requires to be done to do that sort of stuff, and try to focus in that aspect. And I would say like try to networking is the best way. Like if you have friends who are in that sector, then it's good way to like begin with. You already have like a support team to like build it rather than doing it alone. But if you feel like you don't have anyone in your network that way, try to build that network, I would say. I guess I hope that answers your question again. Right. Let's move on to the next, I think. Or is there any interesting upcoming tech in drones and space sector, or in general, that would be the next upcoming trend in industry? Um, I think we are sort of like I'm seeing. Okay, this is what I've seen so far. Like in 2021, they came up with this the PLI scheme for drones. So I saw like a lot of companies using that and like building applications on top of the drone tech, and people were like utilizing it. In some or the other way, some of the sectors have found that it's not actually economical to use drones, and they are like moved away. And they are like in some places they found it like they cannot run beyond certain point without subsidies. So that's where I've seen the trend moving from applications to what I'm currently seeing is like there are a bunch of companies coming up with actual hardware tech, like drone components, like how we are building at Agam Robotics. I'm also seeing there are like other companies who are building the actual hardware stuff. It's nice to see that we also have competitors, and it's good to like know that there is market demand and there are like people actually working on those stuff. I think this is where the trend is going to happen. Like instead of focusing more on the applications, there would be companies moving towards like building that tech, like building the hardware tech. It could be like different components. Like I see not just flight controllers. I see like there are companies doing EACs, motor manufacturers, battery tech. Like right now we have companies who are like importing battery cells and making battery packs. But eventually I think we'll also see like companies making those cells also. It is going to take some time because you need like all the raw materials and like a lot of resources to do it, but we'll see those kind of like things happening in the industry. I think we are moving towards building those systems which were not available in the market, and it's kind of like uh, it's like we are building the entire ecosystem is what I would say. Like rather than building the applications or focusing on the application, I'm seeing like a lot of companies building the actual tech. I hope that answers your question. Right, I think has asked, as you are almost done with the current Agam autopilot version, will you drive into making racing drone FCs like the SpeedyBee ones? I think that's a good and fair question, I would say. In fact, like I come from the FPV background. You might have seen like all these drones over here. I do have like a lot of like for the last I think 6-7 years I've been into FPV stuff. Like I've been doing like FPV freestyle, not much into racing. Uh, like freestyle is more like you're free to do whatever you want kind of a thing. So I do a lot of these skill based like freestyles, like doing flips and rolls and like split S and like a lot of these inverted yaws and lot of moves like I learned. I haven't been into much of the FPV freestyle lately because I got busy with Agam Robotics, but eventually I'll be like getting back into it. But to answer your question, yes, we may have an interest like moving towards the FPV drones and like um, flight controllers for that, which are based on like Betaflight or like iNav and stuff like that. But I think that's again that may change or may not change. For now, we are focused more on the autopilot systems, which we are working, and some of the ecosystems for that, like some components which goes along with it. And if we seem like we can actually do it, we'll plan to do it. I think there are like few companies who are already like building made in India flight controllers for FPV freestyle. I think yeah, it's a good market to start, and it's kind of like it would be a crazy thing like if we move towards like a global market as well for the specific FPV industry, because there's a huge demand across like all the other countries, and it's not just like in India. It would be like a thing happening across like every other country. Um, I don't want to talk about like FPV drones being used in a different place than for the hobby stuff. I'm like more towards the hobby side of things. So I would keep FPV drones for that specific purpose. It was meant for that, and I would recommend doing that. All right, I think let's move on to the next question. As you're almost okay, that's done. You can even try to make Agam FC Navic capable, as current FCs only support GPS, and it may also serve the country drone industry. Okay, current drone industry. Yep, that's for sure. Like again, Navic IC capable GPS systems are like a separate product. Like we don't have to integrate that to the flight controller, meaning like the hardware shouldn't have to be within the flight controller hardware. It would be more of a peripherals, right? Like it's a separate product which you will be connecting to the flight controller, and it would be like interfacing with the flight controllers. Of course, yes, like we will be able to do that. It again depends on how much is the demand for the Navic IC, and like is people are like is the industry really integrating that? Is it like really efficient, and is it something the market is required to use it? That is something we have to see, and that's where we'll make that decision. I think yeah, we are done with like all the questions. Let's go with the final winner. Let's keep it here. I think we have a question from Akash again. What is the highest salary for propulsion engineers, and which engineer play important role in making fighter jets? Okay, that's a very broad question. The salaries could be somewhere like it has a huge range. I would say like from 10. It depends on the experience the person brings to the table, and how much they are able to do it, and what are their capabilities and stuff like that. And I think it would range somewhere around like 10 to somewhere like 50, 60 lakhs or something like that. I'm not like you might have to do research on this on LinkedIn and see like if there are like people in the industry and how much they are earning. I think that's the best way to do it. And which engineers play important role in making fighter jets? Like it's everyone, I would say. Like every engineer is required to do it. Like you need firmware developers, like PCB designers, hardware engineers, mechanical engineers, um, like everyone is required to build you the fighter jets. I think we have a question from Sandeep. How well is your product selling in Indian market? That's the first question. Second is future of Agam Robotics. What is the next product? Is there any component or subsystem on which we need more Indian manufacturer working on? Okay. So to answer your question, how well is your product selling in Indian market? It is fairly okay. I would say it's not like crazy, or like I'm not going to say like it's very bad. People are like using our products. We have like big companies to like very small startups to individuals who are like hobbyists, and like or like individuals who are like planning to build their own startup, but they are building their own prototypes. We are supporting like everyone in the industry, and we have seen like bigger companies using it, and they are like really happy. They have tested it in Himalayas recently, and they have like really good performances on the hardware, and they are like quite happy with it, and they are like moving towards building more of their drone fleets. But the thing is, like, I've seen one kind of like a drawback, or like I wouldn't say drawback. The one thing what I've observed is that like most of the companies are like typically using autopilot, and if you may know, like our autopilot system supports only PX4, and PX4 is based on BSD license, and like who our customers are, like they are like interested to modify the code and like build applications on top of it, and that's where like our flight controllers have this capability that it uses a really powerful microcontroller, and you can add like a lot of new features and like your new things into the flight controller itself, rather than having an external companion computers like Raspberry Pi or Jetson, Nvidia, and things like that. If there are like smaller applications, you can actually develop everything on one flight controller, thereby you reduce all your weight, and like the space, everything, and the power, also power consumption, everything. So that's where like most of the Indian customers are like using like our hardware system, and there are like a lot of companies who are into autopilot, so which means like they have their own applications which they are building to, and because they have been used to autopilot, they are not interested to migrate to PX4, or like if they had to switch the hardware, they had to recertify everything. So that's where they are not like willing to do it. But if there comes a situation where they had to like go with a different system, they are willing to implement it, because they had to like however they had to like recertify the entire drone. So that's where what I've seen, or what I've observed in our product, like from our product perspective, this is what I've seen. But if there are like other manufacturers who support like autopilot and like PX4, which are based on like STM32 and not NXP chip what we use, I think that's where I've seen like people, Indian drone startups or companies are like switching towards like made in India products, because there is like a lot of like problems with like importing the components to like shipping it, and then like it gets stuck in customs, and there's like a lot of delays, which all those things could be eliminated for sure. I think that answers your first question. Second is like future of Agam Robotics. What is the next product? We do have like a few of the product lineups coming up. Like there are like some what do you say, like drone components which we are working. There could be like the sensor systems like GPS and like ESCs or something. Like I worked a few months ago, but I stopped it. It was like put on pause, because I wanted to focus more on my autopilot systems to make it like complete kit. So that's where I was working on. And ESCs are something like we have in the works, and we have also like a optical flow sensor is something we have already done, and we are like working on a better version of it. The first version was more of a testing system, and we are like already working on a newer design. And yeah, we are planning to work on those kind of different components, which could be a part of like an ecosystem along with the Agam autopilot system. And I think, is there any component or subsystem on which we need more Indian manufacturers working on? I think we do have a lot of things like that. It could be video transmission systems, radio controllers. Radio controller is something like commercially not available to anyone. Video transmission system is one. And battery cells is something we already discussed. Like battery packs and battery cell manufacturers is something we don't have. And I think motors and propellers we have like bunch of companies doing it. And I think flight controllers also we have like a lot of companies working on it. Like the electronics I think is kind of okay. Um, the frames is again like it's also possible now to like get it manufactured locally. The electronics everything is fine. There are like certain complex systems like camera sensors, right? So camera sensors, gimbals, and video transmission systems, video encoders, video processor system, the entire system of like the camera input to the output onto your ground control station. So all those things are still yet to be worked, I would say. Maybe there are like companies who are doing it. At this current stage, it's not commercially available. So I hope like the industry works towards that. I think yeah, I think yeah, Sandeep well framed question, I would say. Yep. Maybe current couple of years will focus on internet controlled drones. I feel FC similar to CUAV having Ethernet connectivity option will play a huge role. I think like we already have a lot of flight controllers which supports Ethernet. Like our own flight controller actually supports Ethernet. Like you can connect a companion computer or like put it into into the network, like connect to a GSM network or something, and like you can put the drone on the network and you'll be able to control the drones from like anywhere. There will be the latency, and I think that should be okay if you're like doing certain applications where the latency is not much of a concern. But like if you're doing like an FPV drone or like freestyle drones, that's where like you need a very low latency system. But apart from that, all the other applications require the drone to be like really stable to do its job. So I think the latency should be fine. I think yeah, like networked drones or like drones on the internet, IoT drones are like going to be a thing. Yeah, I think it's already a thing. Will I need 100 crore per year, including aerospace engineers and scientists' salary? That means I need 1000 crores to run company for 10 years. If you're profitable or if you're able to make sales, I think you'll be self-sustainable, right? Like if you have 100 crores, you put in, you develop the all the R&D work, and then you develop a product and it's there in the market. You're trying to sell it. Then you're creating that revenue stream which will go back into your company. So you don't need unless and until you're not making profit at all or like you're not making any sales, then of course yeah, like you will need 1000 crores for 10 years or like even more, because you'll be spending more and more on the R&D. But yeah, like if you're able to quickly sell it to the market, that's where like you'll be able to be profitable. So if you're like building your entire fighter jet, like look into ways where you can actually build a part of the system and you can sell it to the market, and you keep make revenue out of it and like build the entire fighter jet in your background. So that way you'll be able to like create a revenue stream and be able to work on your R&D. Please take my questions. I've been taking your questions, Akash. I've taken all your questions. I guess like I didn't miss any of it. If you have any question which you feel that I missed, maybe you can repost it. Right? I think we have another question. Why is it hard to migrate from Autopilot to PX4? Yeah, that's a good question. It's, to be frank, it's not hard to migrate at all, unless like you built your an application or like you customized Autopilot for your needs. To an extent that like you cannot reverse it back or you cannot do it on the PX4 side, that's where I would say it's really hard to migrate. But if you're building just a flight controller with all the peripherals and you're building a drone and you're not modifying much on the Autopilot side, then like you can actually migrate to PX4. Like most of the devices and peripherals what is supported on Autopilot is also supported by PX4. We have like very common product lineups where like most of the devices like GPS, sensor systems, navigation system, battery systems, radio communication system, a lot of things are actually supported, and you have like no issues with the migration. It's only that like people are so used to using like the Autopilot and they know the parameter names, everything. The parameter names, everything changes, right? Like on the Autopilot it could be called something and here it is called in a different name. So now you have to get used to that parameter change. That's where the shift is. It's basically like it's a very bad analogy, but it's something like you are using Android phone and iPhone. Is it like very hard for anyone to switch from one phone to the other? No, you'll be able to like get to understand like how to use it. Only thing is like you have to figure out like where to find each of those things. It's kind of like that, I would say. But unless and until you have built an entire platform on that system, then that's where the migration is really difficult. I hope that answers your question. Whereas no one is focusing on aerial vehicles, especially in defense tech. I think like there are a lot of companies who are like focusing on aerial vehicles. I'm not sure what you mean aerial vehicle. Like, is that something like aerial vehicle is really common thing, right? Like you have like drones and like even like rockets or kind of like a aerial vehicle. Is it like we're talking about like a UCAV, like an unmanned combat aerial vehicle, or just like an UAV where it carries like missiles, or an aerial vehicle which also carries people? Is that what you're? I'm not sure what your question is. Maybe you can be more clear on that part. Like as far as I know, there are like tons of defense companies who are working on it. The only thing is like it's very hard to crack defense because the contract and the approval process, everything is like so difficult. So it takes months and years together to like actually build something and get it to the defense sector. And most of the companies who do it very quickly are kind of like a people who import parts and kind of like repackage it and build the entire drone and like sell it to the defense sector, which is like not the right way. But if you're really doing everything by yourself, it's going to take it's a huge process. There are like some cases where some defense sector requires you to be certified for certain things, and all those certification takes long time for approvals, and then it needs to be certified by the defense sector, and then like that's where you like clear the contract. So that's where like you see like very less companies working on it. HK, that's hello. Yep. Then Sandeep has another question. If you provide a GCS software customized for agriculture drones with your flight controller, I feel there are a lot of potential to replace the already existing Chinese JIFCs. That's sure, yeah. The thing is like we are not focused on a specific industry like agriculture drones. Right now, I don't see it being like economical for us. So that's why we are not focusing on that. Like we just want to build the autopilot system which caters to like all the different sectors. I don't see the economics of developing a GCS software which is going to like take long time for us to like develop something and add all those features, test it, and then sell it as a package. I think it's like a lot of companies you see using like the agriculture drones are the companies who have subsidies, because they feel this like there is this subsidy for them and they are able to bring the cost down. They are kind of like it seems they are profitable, but once you remove that subsidy, which the government is going to do it, of course, like once the funds run over, now the companies are forced to actually make it profitable business is something really hard. It's not like an easy job to like actually build the entire drone agriculture drone and sell it to the cost which the end customer are looking at. So I would say it's not a easiest way as of now. So I don't want to develop anything of that sort at this point. I hope that answers your question as well, Sandeep. I meant in startups if you're using if you're seeing Unitree. Okay, what was that question? Okay, you're talking about like the robot dogs and stuff like that. I think that's again not an aerial vehicle. It's a ground vehicle. It's a quadruped. Um, I think it's a biped, right? Yeah. But again, like as I said, defense has like a lot of its own criteria which you have to pass through and like go through all these things. It will take years for any companies to like actually develop it as compared to like a commercial product or like an enterprise product. I think that's where the delay and the slow is. So how much manpower and money specific I need? Again, Akash, like it's not. I cannot give you a specific number here. It's very broad. You had to build it and like hire people as and when you need, and like raise funds as and when you need. So there's like no specific number to any startups or any industry. This is not just specific to building fighter jets or anything. It's a specific thing for like any industry. What are some of the challenges while building a product startup in your prototyping stage? How to pitch to investors when your product is continuously undergoing development? Um, I think for building a prototype, I would say the manufacturing process is where the critical part is. Like you had to actually develop the entire product. Like you had to be constantly in talks with manufacturer, and manufacturer has to agree for your R&D thing. Like it could take like months together for you to like actually develop a product. So you had to talk to the manufacturers and be in terms with them to like allow you to like, do that R&D. That's where the lot of time would take. And the other challenges depends on your skills which you are going to bring into the table, and what is the team size, and like who are going to do what. And if you have like good firmware developers and like firmware engineers and PCB design engineers and things like that, that's where you'll be able to speeden up things. And if you are like a solo founder and doing all these things, that's where it would be challenging, which is what was for me. um, but yeah, like the challenges are everywhere in the hardware. Right from day one, like you'll have like challenges in building your prototypes. It could be in different places depending on type of product you're developing, but it could be there in every scenarios. And how to pitch to investors? This is kind of like a good question, I would say. Like most of the investors, when like they they come from like the SaaS or like a software background. There are like very few investors who know or understand like the hardware side of things. They tend to look at looking at your traction and your sales, or like the orders which are coming in. That's what they'll look at. If you have a good investor who understands the hardware side of things, then it's really great. But if it's not, then what I would recommend is like to like try to develop the product or prototype at least by yourself, either like friends and family if you don't have the money, or if you try to convince one or two angel investors to develop your prototype. Once you have the prototype, then it's kind of like easier, because you can do a market analysis, market research, and tell them like these are the orders which you're getting in. Maybe if you can talk to some companies, and if they are ready to provide you an LOI, which is letter of intent, which means they have interest in buying your product, and what could be the quantity. If you get these kind of information, then it's easier to convince investors that like you can try to invest in our company. But again, most of the investors will tend to look at least a prototype, like not just an idea. Like no investors will invest in just an idea. That is for sure. Like it doesn't matter what startup it is. It very rarely happens. If it happens, well and good. But it's like the probability is very very low. Why do the bureaucrats in defense give tenders to such companies who just sell Chinese drones? I mean, they might be doing some checks before tenders. So the thing is, like, like most of the people in the defense side won't understand what kind of like the tech is there. Like, if you have already seen certain parts of a system, and you will understand, if you see that anywhere else, you can easily guess this is the part. But the problem is, like, most of the industry hasn't seen the drone parts, and what these companies typically do is they have their own enclosure with the company's name and logo, everything, and the defense things, like the product was developed by them. That's how it happens. Apart from that, they haven't gone beyond that check. Like try to find out where they got this component, where they got it manufactured, who were their suppliers, who were their vendors. Like once they dig into this, that's where they'll find out where those parts are coming from, and whether they actually did any like hardware development, or like was it a white label product. But that's where like that check is not there. Like that's what is missing. Right, I think let's get back to the final winner. I think we have taken enough questions. We'll kind of like end the AMA session here. But the giveaway, let's do a random pick out of these five. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Click. Oh, my bad. Selected 5 here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pick. Alright, we have a winner. Satyakama Sharma. If you are watching this live stream, text or type in the live chat. If not, I think I'll get your email from the form, and then I'll email, and if you have your phone number there, I'll text you. All right, I think we have a winner for now. That's great. I think we also have all the EME questions answered. If you guys have any questions, you can post. I think if not, it's already 11:59. We'll try to end the live stream. I hope you guys had fun. I hope it was informative. I hope I answered your questions. I hope you had all your questions answered. If you have anything, maybe you can tweet or DM me. You have all my socials on most of my videos on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, please do it. I guess, yeah. Thanks for watching. Happy Sunday.